responding to the call,
Yeah.
I guess, from your mother and the boyfriend.
Tony actually, I believe, called his personal cell phone.
Tony called his cell phone.
And
Okay.
told him that about mom jumping out of the car, because prior to this this video, Tony and mom were riding down the road, and she literally jumped out of his vehicle going 35 miles an hour down the road.
Right.
Right in front of the jail. Jumped out of his vehicle.
And Tony said something to I remember he said something to the deputy about her.
About that. And I can get that to...
As we notice, while this is playing, you as let's say you live in Walton County and you're a taxpayer. Listening to this, does that satisfy your actual needs? Does it satisfy your curiosity of what's going on right now?
No. And even though that it's my mom, if that was somebody else, it doesn't change the fact that you can't tell anything that's being said on this video. And that's because of, I mean, you can hear it. It's like echoes and stutters and choppy and you can hear her crying and upset, and I can make out what she says because I know what she's doing.
You know her voice, but to the average person that doesn't know the voice, it's hard to understand.
Had you come talk to me, I didn't see him. I didn't know what I knew. Yeah, Mark's on what I said. I didn't see me though.
He's saying that he had marks on him, Linda, and she's saying she didn't do it.
She told him, you didn't see me though. She wouldn't go meet with him. He wanted to meet with her Saturday. She wouldn't go meet with him because every time she came in contact with a deputy sheriff, she went to jail.
Right.
She didn't want to go meet with him because she didn't want to go to jail.
She automatically, basically, she felt...
If she wasn't working for him...
She's to blame, basically, period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because the way he called and attacked her, and that's in the other video, you can hear him on the phone with her. But you can... Every time she came in contact with Walton County, it was, you're working for us and you're helping us, or you're going to jail. It's that simple. It wasn't a good citizen changing a tire like you see deputies all the time changing someone's tire. Right. That was never her. If a deputy sheriff was there, she was in trouble or working for him, one or the other.
Gotcha.
Yes, I didn't see you because you were separated on talking. Had you come talk to me, I sit down.
So had you came and talked to me, the decision would have been different? That's what I got from that statement he said.
Right.
If you would have presented yourself last night, so I could have arrested you. He already had the warrant. I have that, and he already had the warrant, so he was going to arrest her anyways. But he's telling her, had you talked to me last night, the decision might have been different. How? What does not even 24 hours change?
It didn't change the incident. Mm-hmm. It's still the same outcome. The cooler was thrown, pepper spray was sprayed, so it's still the same outcome. Okay.
She told me that. I need I can talk to you. I can tell you that to me. I can hear that. Talk to your narcotics people. Yeah, Tony, please help me.
He says talk to your narcotics people again, I guess, to kind of try to help her get herself out of trouble.
Yep.
Okay.
So to me, I don't know the legalities, the law book. I don't know a false arrest, but just the common people word false arrest, that's what this is to me. It's almost like an entrapment. Like, okay, we have something that we can arrest Linda on. Let's arrest Linda and then tell her to talk to narcotics and get out of it.
See what they can get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Back to the dispute because I got to do something with it. What happened?
This is where he starts talking to Tony about the dispute of that day. This is the day she jumped out of the vehicle.
What happened this morning? What time did it happen?
10:30, 11.
It happened around 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
Okay, let's make that go.
All right, so 10:30, 11 o'clock, that's fine, I'll do that. And what happened? You went to take her to town, she jumped out of the car where?
Well, from the sheriff's department. She said, stop, because I would take her to the And so she said, she wants to take us up to town to come back. So I did. Then she went to go somewhere else. I said, I'm going home and head with it. And she tried to get out. She opened the door, and I was going like 25, 30. And so I was slowing down. She closed up the park. So I tried to break. She keeps having transmission up. She jumps out. Then she left the pocketbook. So she tried to jump back in. I like to run over. And she got back on the truck. So I stopped. Called her home.
You see how he almost ran over her because she literally jumped out of his vehicle.
And then she gets back in and come out here and it's just been battles and shit. And mom comes out and I just called you and just, all right. I mean, she needs me. If she's not first out, I believe.
He just said, she's suicidal, I believe.
Okay.
She's jumped out of a moving vehicle. For 2 days, she's had the same demeanor, the same mental state of mind. And he says it himself in the presence of not one, but 2 deputies that she is suicidal.
And you were told about how many deputies were actually on the scene that day?
When we requested the videos, I only got this one video from this one deputy.
From one.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the video it shows
2.
2 different deputies. Okay.
All right, well, we're done.
And that's it. She's got to do about us. All right.
Right now, take my daughter to sleep. Honey, please.
She's asking to call her daughter.
Yeah, she's
now?
asking to
Okay.
call me, because I was supposed to come get her.
Right.
I was supposed to go to her house. I had literally just got off the phone with her. I was supposed to go to her house and go pick her up. She was coming back to my house. The relationship with Tony and her had fell apart. They were really bad for each other. Like, they were good together. They loved each other, but they were bad for each other. Like,
Right.
one fed off the other. You know, it's just like a Bonnie and Clyde type situation.
Right.
You're so in love that it's wrong. And then you have her begging to call me here, begging to call her mom. Like, I don't know if she's begging the officer or Tony. And then he's just rude the whole ride back to the jail. Like, he's just... Right there is the other
Deputy's car.
car.
Because the one's pulling out.
Mhm.
Clear as day.
Defense, that's fine, but I have to go one at a time.
And he's going so slow out of the driveway because there's these trees, there's like roots and stuff. Like,
Okay. So it's kind of bumpy.
bumpy.
And he was right.
He told me to come in and get me locked up. He was right. I'm okay.
So they say he's going to call the police
To have her
locked
arrested.
up
And he
just
said
to get her.
she's right.
Okay.
And
And kind of belittling after
Yeah.
we've listened to it before is a belittling ride versus trying to give positive reinforcement or guide her to the right directions.
it was all about how much attitude he could give her. He was pushing her and pushing her and pushing her and pushing her. When you use your badge as an attack mechanism, like is done in this video, what are you proving? What do you get out of making somebody feel so little of themselves that they already want to kill themselves, but yet here you are just told she was suicidal and you just keep pushing, poking,
Gotcha.
just waiting for her to explode.
What in God's name do you keep coming back over here for? It don't make no sense.
What in God's name do you keep doing coming back over here? That is a house that she lived at for 9 years. 9 years.
Where else
What
was she
God-given
supposed
right
to-
does he
right.
have to ask her why she's going back home? She's not evicted. There was no TPO. From my understanding, Tony wasn't even at home most of the time. It was just her. Like, who gives him the right to tell her not to go somewhere?
She paid bills and stuff
Yeah,
like
she
that.
paid the rent up until like while it was being paid, and then the power and water. That's all they had. They didn't have cable.
But he's calling her by first name when he arrests her, so he's already aware of her. So he's aware that she's more likely living there or lives there.
Yeah, he knows her on a good enough basis to approach her on a first name basis.
Right.
And even in the incident report, it states that they have a history of domestic disputes and disturbances that I'm assuming he's responded to. Because
Right.
how else would he have known unless he searched it?
Correct. And this is really not to beat up. We're here for a whole different
Yeah.
reason. We're not beating up Walton County deputies.
Yeah.
However, that is borderline of just being professional
Yeah, it's
or unprofessional, should I say?
it's sad that as a citizen, I'm not a criminal, but as a citizen, I can't have a criminal family member that goes to jail and feel safe about them. So now every time somebody goes to jail,
You're gonna worry,
I'm going to worry myself sick.
right?
My sister works there.
Well, and that goes back to, I mean, now because we're having this discussion, we know that your sister works there. We know for a fact that Fox 5 kind of put out some footage that
A whole entire screen of every video
right
angle.
puts out risk to deputy safety as well as officer safety.
The article that was posted in the Walton County Tribune about mom's death. You want to pull that up?
Yeah, we'll go to.
This is it. So it says Yearwood's daughter works at the Walton County Detention Center. So Sheriff Joe Chapman said Yearwood was housed at the Newton County Detention Center. You know that this woman is working for this jail. She is an informant. You know this.
Right.
Everybody knows this. Anybody who's somebody in that jail knows what she did for them. But you're going to put it out there that her daughter works there. So when the person, the habitual violator that comes back in for selling more drugs because the punishment he got the first time wasn't hard enough, who do you think he's going to go after? Linda's dead now. Where's it?
Right.
You're not protecting my sister.
Not to mention, let's say Linda, before she passed away, owed anybody monies or someone found
Ripped
out that
someone
it was,
off.
Right. So it would pose probably somewhat of a threat to your sister.
And then Sheriff Joe Chapman says she has a history of drug abuse. You know an inmate has a history of drug abuse. What are you doing to help these inmates? I have an entire binder right here that shows that you do nothing.
That's correct.
You-
No, I mean we know about, as you said, there's nothing for the drug abuse. So tell me about, because we're going to the history of Linda and her mental status and her health status. We already know there was problems with drugs.
Yes.
When she was arrested, tell me about the medical status.
Medically, she was diagnosed with hypertension. She had a spinal tumor on her spine that is at the base of her spine that is notated in these records. Bipolar, depression, and the chronic drug abuse. I mean, there was more to her health than I even knew. But the basics are she admitted to depression and bipolar. She told you that she used drugs. Did you need her to wrap it up and put a big bow on it and hand it to you too? I mean, she gave you everything you needed.
Right.
And then it says in here that she was declared brain dead at the hospital after being taken off life support, said Sheriff Joe Chapman. No, that's false. We were told she was brain dead before the DNR was ever issued, because we made her do not resuscitate. Before that was ever issued, and before we turned off the ventilators, we were told that she was brain dead. To me, this article sounds like she wasn't even good enough for her family. They just killed her off, you know?
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then they have this suicide phone number up here. It's a whole phone number and a whole thing about committing suicide. Where's that at in the jail? Where do you help these people? Yeah, you throw them in a padded cell with a paper gown and a hole in the floor, but where's the help?
Well, and I'm glad we're talking about where's the help, because going through our notes, as you did your own investigation, we noticed, how long did it take for her in 2015 when she was arrested in April to actually have a doctor see her from April 1st?
I think that was about 7 or 8 days that time, and that was she only was seen by the doctor after she was placed in suicide watch. She was always seen by nurses or LPNs and RNs. I think it was only one RN if I'm not mistaken. but I think it was like 7 days almost, because she went into suicide watch on April the 7th of 2015.
Okay, so they put her on suicide.
Mhm.
Getting a little deeper involved in that, we found inconsistencies as far as reporting the medical stuff.
Before she was even on suicide watch, she had 3 seizures in an hour and 45 minutes.
Correct. And
To one where she was unresponsive to physical and verbal stimuli, unresponsive to sternal rubs, completely unresponsive.
ever called an ambulance, transported
No
her?
ambulance, no ER. She was given Ativan. The same thing she was given for the first 2 seizures. She was given Ativan. But here we are on seizure number 3, and this inmate / patient is, nothing's being done. She's just here, in a jail, 3 seizures, being seen by a nurse. Don't you think it's something up higher than that? Where's these seizures coming from? What's causing these seizures? Is it the spinal cancer that you guys didn't believe she had? Is it the drugs withdrawing? What is causing these seizures? You can't make that determination in a setting of a jail. They're not equipped to make it.
So
The ambulance should have been called, and she should have been at a hospital.
she should have been at a hospital. You think that's the actual right course of action for
Yeah.
that?
I work at a doctor's office.
Well, I was getting ready to say, I think you said you had medical background.
I work at a doctor's office, and you can't. The malpractice is a word that is used for an individual doctor or a group of doctors that neglectfully handle their patients. Basically saying, if we were both doctors and I treated grossly different than you treated a patient for the same diagnosis, that's malpractice. Here they're protected. They're protected by government. They have a separation by government. They can neglect these inmates. They can look over stuff. They can throw them in a cell and not look at them for 15 hours if they don't want to, and they get away with it because they're protected by the government.
And going back to neglecting, not paying attention to, you did some research. How many times was she actually unsupervised while on suicide watch?
I'm not sure the exact number of how many times, but I can tell you there was an hour-long gap. Suicide watch, the protocol asks for 15-minute intervals.
Right.
Do not exceed 15-minute intervals. You can check on them 2 minutes, you can check on them every 5 minutes, but they are not to exceed 15 minutes. There was an hour. I think there was one that was 30 minutes, one that was like 45 minutes. There was even some reports in there that say that she was awake and restless, she was sleeping and resting, and she was disruptive all at the same time. How? How are you asleep and resting, withdrawing for one? How are you awake and restless and disruptive all at the same time? It's one or the other, or maybe 2, but you can't be asleep and awake.
Right, not to mention,
I
think there was one where we looked, there was no observation for about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
However, she was
Pepper
awake
spray.
or restless or something like that.
And pepper spray.
They were showing her actions. However, she wasn't observed for a whole hour.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about?
It's
As a person, how does it make you feel as a daughter, knowing that they treat your mom?
Yeah, as
like
her
that?
daughter, it enrages me. It's sad to know that she meant so little to somebody that they didn't care. They pepper sprayed her after she had the 3 seizures. They pepper sprayed her while she was on suicide watch. She complained of chest pains twice. No EKG, no cardio workup, nothing was done. Now you're not only dealing with seizures, you have seizures and chest pain. Nothing. They gave her Tylenol extra strength for chest pain that she complained of twice.
No doctor.
No, yeah, and to me, it's like she wasn't big enough for them. She wasn't enough for somebody to care about. She's lived in this county for 50 years. She's got the chronic drug abuse history. You don't care about her mental health history or her health history. All you care about is the fact that she uses drugs.
So the basics is less than human, basically. But it's okay to use her to help the county purchase drugs and get the bad guys off the street.
Mm-hmm.
But then when she's incarcerated,
The animals in a kill shelter get treated better than this. It's that bad. It's that sad. We can go through all these papers. We can look and see how she was neglected. There's missing vital signs. It's repeatedly missing. Narcotics being confused with benzos. If you're a nurse and you don't know the difference between a narcotic and a benzo, then there's a problem. She was being treated for a benzo withdrawal, but yet the narcotics box was checking. Well, like had a check mark. But there's no narcotics protocol in here. You have someone who is vomiting, tremoring, diarrhea from withdrawals, and you're treating her for the wrong withdrawal.
So on one of these suicide watches, I think we found out there was an actual bite.
Yes. I'm not sure what day or what time it was because the records weren't noted. It wasn't noted. I bonded her out, and when I bonded her out, there was these huge marks on her wrist, like sores. And I said, "What did you do to your arm?" She was like, "I was going crazy in there. I literally bit my wrist trying to bite my veins out of my arms." And it was on both arms. And then the day that she walked out of jail that day, she walked out of jail with a t-shirt on, a white t-shirt on, that they had given her that said "Free Bird" on the back of it. A handwritten Sharpie marker.
Wow.
They gave her that shirt because her shirt was messed up from where she was puking from withdrawals. You said, and when she was arrested in August, she was arrested at roughly 5 o'clock that afternoon. She wasn't even touched by a nurse until 3 o'clock the next morning. 3 o'clock the next morning. This isn't an ER you're running, it's a jail. You're not having traumas come in every 5 minutes. Yeah, stuff happens. Yeah, stuff gets missed. But when there's years of history repeating itself, something's got to change.
We know that she's been to Walton County Jail a few times. There's history, there's records. Upon your investigation, any consistency with the records? I mean, it's kind of like going to the doctor. If you're seeing a cardiologist, they're going to say irregular heartbeat, enlarged heart, or something like that, and it's going to be consistent.
There was no consistency. To me, they might have checked the same box between one incident and the next, but as far as her medical history, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's something that they ask her, but that's just like you said, going to the doctor. If I go to the doctor Monday and go back for a follow-up Friday, you don't think that doctor's going to look at what happened Monday? Right. You can look at all this stuff. She admits to all the drug use. The only consistency was the fact that there was drug use and needle marks noted.
I think we even got to a point where we noticed different signatures.
Yes. There's documents that is her signature, and there's documents that look like I handed my 6-year-old a pencil and let him draw on the wall.
Why do you think that would have happened?
To me, it makes me feel like it's a cover-up. Like, okay, well, we forgot to do this, or she wasn't complying with us right now, so let's just rush through this, get her out of here. Oh crap, Linda died, let's sign it all.
Let's fix it now.
Yeah, let's fix it now because, from what I was told, 90% of families who have an inmate that die in jail sue. So they know it's coming.
Right.
You know I'm coming at you full force. You know I'm coming at you like a freight train. Let's fix it. Let's sign her signature. If you think that I'm upset enough to not notice my mama's signature, the woman who birthed me, the woman who I've had in my life for 24 years, if you think that I'm going to be so upset to where I didn't notice, and it's almost like they handed me all this thinking that I wasn't going to look at it.
Right.
I looked at it page by page, line by line, checkbox by checkbox. Spent hours on this because of how wrong it is. And it all goes back to the same problem. Do your job.
If this was your jail, who would you send to there?
Who would I send to?
Would you send anybody to that jail knowing what you know now?
No. You know what I was telling my husband on the way up here? I was talking to him, I actually was on the way up here yesterday. I was telling him about how if I ever got pulled over in Walton County, I'm running. I'm going to fly to the next county line. You know why? Because I'm not going to that jail. You're not going to take me to that jail. Yeah, I shouldn't be running. But guess what? I'm not going to that jail because if you treat me like you treated her, I'd rather be dead too.
Wow. That's
It's sad. This
They're
big
not-
brick
not-
building, beautiful building, and you treat people like they're in.
But that's kind of what we've been talking about for a while now with that building. A lot of people see, as you said, it's a beautiful brick building.
But in the inside of it, it's like the dungeon of death. Like what?
That is correct, because those bricks are concealing everything that's occurring inside. This is why we're here and we're talking today, is based off of the
Everybody sees the pretty
negligence, the unprofessionalism inside the jail, to, as you said, know your job.
If you
Be
sign
a-
up
be a
for
little
a
more
job
thorough.
and you're trained for this job, if you're trained correctly for this job, you should be able to perform this job.
Correct.
The LPNs and nurses, they're trained in school. The jailers, the deputies, they're sent to school.
Right.
There's a correct term for it, but whatever. They are sent for training. If they are trained correctly and they have somebody that makes sure they're doing their job, we wouldn't have a problem. But here we have a repeated failed system. It's not only failing to the point of neglect, it's not only failing to the point of common sense. I mean, there cannot be this many ignorant people in this world. I mean, we looked over pages and pages of her medical records.
Correct.
And the number of people that had interaction, there's no way that many people lacks common sense.
And we've seen quite a few signatures
Yeah.
with inconsistencies.
And that there's no way. You can't be that blindsided, and you can't, and you hear all the time like, I love my job, everybody loves their job, blah, 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 blah. It comes down to the point where, do you love your job more than you value your morals? Because
Correct.
there's no way I'd be working for this jail.
Well, I mean, is your job more important than human life in this aspect?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what occurred here.
People have to work to eat.
Correct. You got to support a family. We all know this. That's why we go to work every day.
But how do you sleep at night knowing stuff like this happens in that jail?
Exactly.
How do you sleep? How do you go to sleep at night not seeing the faces of these inmates that you've just wronged? How do you get up and go to work the next morning to go do it all over again?
So Joe Chapman says his jail is one of the best ran jails in the state of Georgia. What do you think about that?
No. It's false, because if it was the best ran jail in the state of Georgia, we would be avoiding all of this. We would be making sure our inmates are taken care of. We would be making sure that they had the follow-up care. You have a jail that's located beside a mental facility. Advantage Behavioral and Health is right across the street from the jail. Utilize them. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's even in the budget where he's given money to this system. So use them. Utilize them. You used my mama. You used my mama to get your seizures. You used her to get your drug dealers off the streets. You used her for an informant. Use the people that you're giving your money to. Use them to help people like her.
What do you think about the deputies with we talked about deputies coming and going on a pretty rapid basis. Do you think that's enough time? Let's say, I'm just going to throw a number out there. Let's say a deputy's employed there for a year. Do you think a year is enough time to actually be trained thoroughly, and then bring in another guy straight out of high school or a couple years out of high school and to train them? And you keep, it's a revolving door with employees. Can you get the quality? Can you get the quality service and care from them?
No, you can have a great job and a horrible manager, and that ruins the job for you. You can have it handed to you on a silver platter. A lot of people that I know walked into positions like this, you know? You can't do the job without being trained. You cannot be fully trained. I have 3 sons. Not one of my kids are going to be anything in law enforcement, period. You know why? Because it's rushed. You have like you said, a year's time, and then they quit. You know why they quit? Because they think, okay, well, let's see how good it gets. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. First day jitters type thing. And then they see what goes on, and they quit. And the sad thing about it is the people that's patrolling these county roads don't even see half of what goes on in the jail.
Right.
So they're just as blind as anybody. You can't fake a smile, throw it on a billboard, and call it the truth. When you have stacks of paper against you proving that you're not doing your job. You're not doing your job when it comes to these inmates. If you're doing your job, that means everybody up under you is going to be doing theirs. And as far as this crap goes about how good these employees are and how he has the best employees in the world, no. That is absurd, because every employer has people that are bad apples. Every employer has somebody that doesn't do their job. Somebody that halfway does their job. You're not going to tell me that you have how many ever employees in that building and they're all A1.
And you think Joe Chapman is setting a great example?
No. My little sister doesn't talk to me because she doesn't want to have anything to do with what I'm doing because she loves her job.
Do you think she might be a little intimidated or afraid of losing her job if she actually stuck up for her family?
I feel like she feels like she can't say anything about it. She can't voice her opinion because she may lose her job, or it may make it uncomfortable for her, you know? If you
Does she have kids or anything?
No.
No.
She doesn't have any kids. She lives with my aunt. It's all fearful of what could happen. Yeah, if I sue them for what happened to my mom, you think they're going to fire her? No, because they're not going to want another lawsuit.
Right.
And if they fire her, they're going to get one. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
it's just uncomfortable. Her standing on it and talking about it would make it uncomfortable for her at work. She doesn't want to have any part in it. I respect that.
And the reason I kind of asked that is not to get into your sister.
Mm-hmm.
Someone actually kind of quoted to me on Facebook that deputies and officers, they all took an oath, and that the oath should come first before anything. And basically, if they see wrongdoing, they're supposed to report it. And
But who do you report it to? The man that's doing the wrong?
well, I guess that's what they want. You go to the guy that's in charge of all the wrongdoing, that's doing wrong, and you're gonna wind up probably.
It doesn't work. That's why it's went on for so long. You report it to somebody that already knows. Just because you don't know he knows doesn't mean he doesn't know. You report it to somebody who already knows what's going on behind those jail doors. He already knows what's going on with his little business endeavors throughout the county. He already knows everything about himself, and you're just going and tattling. So guess what you are? You're no better than a regular.
More than likely now you're a threat to
Yeah,
him.
you're a
because
threat to him,
You're
'cause you
trying
know.
to trying to, I guess, be a whistleblower, and from there
You're no better than the informant that my mama was.
you're tucked away in a dungeon, or you're out of a job now because you're not part of that team.
Sat at a desk, thrown in a tower. It's like if you rebuke everything he says, it's pushed to the side. He's got a circle. If you stay in that circle, you're good to go. You might even get a promotion.